Hi, my name is Tammy, and I want to tell the story about what happened to my daughter, Willow. This is her 2 months before she died. She died December 17th, 1977. But I just recently found out a mystery about her death, and it's pretty upsetting. I wrote a story about Willow, and I'm just going to go by that, and so it will make some sense. Um, She was born at Reddington Fairview Hospital in Skowhegan, Maine. It was a Thursday. All through my pregnancy, I never went to a doctor until my feet were so swollen I could not wear any type of sandals. Back then, in 1977, it was like we were living a very hippie lifestyle, kind of the late end of hippiness, but we managed to fit it in. I found out that I had toxemia, and they explained it was quite dangerous for me and my baby. It was my first baby. I was 18. I went into labor, and back then they used to not let you have ice cubes. They used to shave you. It was quite different. The doctor, the nurse was like, "No, you're not going to have a baby." I knew the baby was coming. So my mother and sister, they checked me, and sure enough, the baby was born. Willow was born. She weighed 6 pounds, 12 ounces, and she was 18 and a half inches long. So my husband and I, Kenny, we lived in a little trailer in North Anson, Maine. So we went there with our baby, but we were having a hard time financially and everything. So we thought, my father lived in Gonnock, New Hampshire. So we thought we'd do a new start for all of us. So we rented a house at 103 Main Street in Rochester, New Hampshire. I was working at Rochester Shoe, and so was my husband, Kenny. And at that time, his daughter, Lisa, was also with us. She was 5 years old at the time, I believe. And so I was looking for a good babysitter. So I went to the state and got a New Hampshire state licensed child care provider list. I interviewed 2 or 3 people, and I decided on this babysitter. I really couldn't remember her name. Recently, my ex-husband Kenny told me that her name was Julie Burrows back there. I felt like she was good. I called her references. I felt she was a good babysitter. So on December 16th, 1977, I was working, and I came up and they said, "Hey, listen, we got a call from the hospital," and they said to go right away. Your daughter's in the emergency room. I had dropped her off. She was fine. So I didn't think it was too serious because it was like she was fine when I left. So I was like, what could it be? A cold? And I asked which daughter, because we had Lisa and Willow. Lisa was at a different place. And so I went to the emergency room. They wouldn't tell me what was wrong. And they put me in a room, and I kept on saying, "Where's my daughter? I want to know what's wrong." And they kept on saying, "Oh, no. We can't tell you anything. The doctor has to tell you." So then a nurse came in and said, "The babysitter is hysterical. Will you go talk to her?" And I said, "No, I want to know what's wrong with my child. She was with that babysitter. So what happened?" And they said, "The doctor cannot leave your daughter unless, it's, life and death." So then I knew it was serious. But I still don't know why. So then they came back in. I was really having a hard time. Nobody would answer me. Nobody would tell me what was going on. Eventually, our nurse came in the room and said they're going to transport your daughter to Maine Medical, which was the nearest big hospital. So then I followed, me and Kenny and Kenny's friend. He had gotten a ride. We didn't have a car at the time. And we got to Maine Medical, and she was on life support. I still didn't know why. And so a woman came in and took me into a room. Kenny had left with his friend. He had an aunt in that area. My mother had came down, my sister April, some other family members. They took me alone in a room, though, and they said, listen, we believe it's Sid's. The babysitter caught her, you know, before she died, so the boyfriend gave her mouth to mouth, and that's why, you know, she's still here, but, you know, we'll do the best we can. So I went back out. That was on December 16th. Waited all night, and then on December 17th, they came to me, and they took me back in the room again, and they said, listen, your daughter is brain dead. We put ice cold water in her ears, and there's no reaction. So she really isn't alive. She's really dead. Her brain is dead, but her body is still alive because we have her on life support. So it's going to be up to you whether, you know, we take her off the life support or keep her on. And I was like, I can't make that kind of decision. What mother could make that kind of decision? So I went in to see Willow, and it allowed me in. Back in the day, they didn't really let you stay there in the room with her. And they allowed me to see her, and she twitched. And I was so excited. I called the nurse, and I said, she's moving, she's alive. And they said, no, that's just muscle spasms. And I could no way, you know, take her off the life support. So she died by herself at 10:17 p.m. that night. Now, my life was pretty chaotic. We were, like I said, the hippie type. We were hipping and drinking, just partying, you know, and we worked and all that on the weekends. And I was so young, I was devastated. So I went in back to my house after they told me that. We drove back to Rochester, and I walked in, and I saw her. It was green baby bottle. I was using green bottles. There was green baby bottles on the counter. They had put there that morning, Friday morning, and then her crib that I had taken her out, and she still had dirty clothes in our hamper. But it hit me at that time that I was never going to see her again. So we had the funeral the next week. I can't really remember too much about it. My aunt Charlotte paid for that funeral. In the meantime, my husband had gone to the bar and brought this guy home that didn't have a place to sleep. And the shoe shop had, you know, gone around and got $500, collected $500 from us for the funeral. And I had the only pictures I had of Willow in this purse. So when I woke up, my purse was gone, and so was the guy with my photos. The only photos I have, you know, the last photos I had of Willow. So at that time, Kenny remembered the name of the guy, and so I called the last person I called out in the phone book. Finally got hold of his father by miracle. The father explained the situation, that my daughter was dead, that if the money was gone, it was gone, but I really wanted the pictures. So he must talk to his son, and they called me back and said, hey, your purse is in a dumpster behind such and such store. I said, okay. So I ran and retrieved my purse, and sure enough, the film was still in there, and I got them developed. These are some of the pictures. The girl laughing is Lisa, my stepdaughter at the time, and then my nephew Abraham, my niece Velvet, and my daughter Willow. This is my grandmother and Willow. She used to come every Saturday, and she would, you know, bring me grocery shopping and everything. This is Kenny, my husband at the time, and our daughter Willow. These pictures were taken 2 weeks before she died. And here again is Kenny and Willow. And then there's me playing with Willow, and that's our dog Chang, who's a black chow. And then, of course, my grandmother again with Willow and Lisa. And Lisa playing with Willow. And then, of course, I had to get one of her crying at the time because she did cry. And me and Willow. Again, Me and Willow. So, so then it was a mess. 2 weeks later, I went and talked to the babysitter and said, I need to know what happened. And she said, oh, I fed her chopped up broccoli. And I was like, why would you do that? Because at the time, even back then in 1977, it was accepted to give the kids like baby cereal when they were 6 weeks old and start giving them a little bit of food. But even then, she only had formula that I brought every day in little stage 1 baby food. There was no need of her, that babysitter, to give her the chopped up broccoli. Then she said that she fed her and brought her upstairs. There was only one flight of stairs and the room was right on the side of the stairs. Brought her upstairs to take a nap or whatever. So she laid her down on her back, and then she said she went back downstairs. And that Willow was crying, so she decided to go check on her. And then she was halfway up the stairs. Willow had stopped crying. By the time she got to the top, she claims that Willow was blue in the face. And the boyfriend, she called for the boyfriend. The boyfriend came up and gave her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. She threw up. And then they did call 911. They brought her to the hospital. I had so many problems with that story, even then, because the hospital had told me it was crib death, it was SIDS. And here this woman is telling me that, and most likely it sounded to me like my daughter had choked to death. So I went to the doctor and I went to call the police first after I left the babysitters. And I said, hey, this is not SIDS. And the police said, we have to go by what the doctor said. So I went ahead and went to the doctor and I said, hey, listen, this is what the babysitter told me. And this isn't SIDS. And they said, well, it's possible she fell asleep within that by the time she was going up the rest of the stairs and start breathing. But I mean, it takes like 3 minutes to turn blue from my research, and this would have been 10 seconds. So it wasn't making sense. I had to accept, I was 19 years old, my daughter was dead. No matter what happened, she was dead. And I kind of had to accept it. So I really don't remember anything else from the end of December that 1977 until I remember, August 5th, for some reason, me and Kenny got married then. Or maybe it was August 8th, 1978. And then in that fall, we broke up. He left with Lisa and Chang. And I was devastated because I really loved him a lot. And, he really didn't like staying with one woman. So it was pretty devastating. So I really started drinking a lot. Went back to Maine for a little bit and then moved to Rochester, New York, and started my life there. I just kind of like shut the door in Willow and just didn't think about it because it was just too painful. So now we're 43 years later, and I have come back to New Hampshire. So, of course, I wanted to go to Willow's grave and everything. And then I was like, I want to start a scrapbook for her so that she's not forgotten completely, And so I went to Portland, Maine, and got her death certificate. And lo and behold, I was expecting to see SIDS as the cause of death. But, no. This is what they gave me. And I don't know if you can see, but it says, aspiration, lack of oxygen due to aspiration. That was shocking to me. The doctor did not put, he was a resident at the time, and he did not put anything in the box that says accidental, homicide, suicide. He didn't put anything. And I don't know why. It's like she slipped through the cracks. It was like they told us this at the hospital. That was the accepted version that I accepted. And then this death certificate was wrong. So now I'm left, here I am. What can I do? I didn't know the babysitter's name. I had met Kenny and his daughter Lisa for the first time in years, 42 years. Met up, and he told me that it was Julie Burrows, that his Aunt Tina came up to him and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, what happened to your daughter?" You know, and then Kenny was like, "How do you know what happened to my daughter?" And she said, "Well, my daughter, Julie, is the one that was babysitting her." So I went on Facebook and tried to find a Julie Burrows, because she would have been a little bit older than me, maybe like 68, I think, because I'm 62 right now. And I couldn't really find her. The one I did find, I sent a message and they never replied. So I'm kind of left with this injustice. I feel like my daughter had no justice. Even though that babysitter might have been an accident, she didn't mean intentionally to kill my daughter. She did by pure negligence. You do not feed a baby chopped up broccoli, then put them upstairs and have them crying, and then on their back, choking. You know, I would like to talk to her to find out what her version of events is now that I have this death certificate. And I know if I had the money, I would try to hire a lawyer and, I don't know, try to get some kind of justice for her. She's dead. Nothing's going to bring her back. But it breaks my heart. So I just felt compelled to share this story. Thank you for listening.